All right, so as you all know, DNR has a constitutional and legislative mandate to manage public lands on behalf of the communities we serve and ensure that our public lands are providing the greatest environmental, social, and economic good. We also have a clear fiduciary responsibility to manage our lands for named beneficiaries, not just for current beneficiaries, but future ones. And just as your communities and districts are very, very diverse, so are our beneficiaries and what they are wanting specifically from the management of their very diverse lands. In addition to meeting the needs of our beneficiaries for current and future generations, we also have flexibility and discretion in how we meet our fiduciary responsibilities. The most recent Supreme Court decision lays this out very, very clearly about our ability to manage that with discretion and innovation to meet the fiduciary responsibilities. We are seeing throughout our state a rapidly changing landscape, both on our physical landscape as well as our community's landscape. We've completed an assessment on the impacts of climate change in every single corner of the state on our forest, our agricultural lands, our commercial, our industrial, as well as our aquatic lands, and see the impacts the changing climate has now and will have in the next 20 plus years. We're also responding to a very changing landscape when it comes to our beneficiaries, everything from changes in zoning or increased population, development, as well as interest in recreation. We are doing everything we can to be able to work within these changing conditions to set our lands and our communities for success now and in the future. And this means diversifying our asset portfolio, managing our lands to be more resilient in the face of climate change, from forest health and wildfire to drought and dust storms, so they can continue to provide the ecological and economical benefits for future generations and fulfill the evolving needs of these communities. It also means working with our beneficiaries' interests and different tools. For example, we're now moving into housing. And as many of you know, we do economic development and commercial and industrial development. We also recognize there's a growing need in many communities around a concern around ecosystem services like water quality and water quantity, fish and wildlife habitat, recreation, and carbon storage. These are just some of the examples of the work we've been doing to be ready for those requests and needs. And just as I said, you all have different districts with very different needs, so to our beneficiaries. In the last year, we've heard from local governments throughout the state, specifically from mayors and county commissioners and council members, Jefferson, Whatcom, Thurston, the list is growing. There are many more that are specifically asking us to look at the forest lands that are under their trust in a different way. Not all their forest lands, but some of those forest lands. In addition to the beneficiary needs, we also have state law asking us to do more. You, the legislature, passed the Climate Commitment Act, a seminal legislation that positions our state to aggressively fight climate change. The legislature set ambitious greenhouse gas reduction targets, and you urged voluntary and incentive-based carbon sequestration projects and directed state agencies to explore those activities. You established a natural climate solutions account to increase the resilience of states' waters, forests, and other vital ecosystems to the impact of climate change, conserve working forests at risk of conversion, and increase the carbon pollution reduction capacity through sequestration, storage, and overall system integrity. In addition, the Trust Land Performance Assessment that we did in partnership specifically asks us to look at other revenue streams and calls directly out carbon storage and carbon projects as an opportunity. What we've done in this project is try to create a new tool in the toolbox as we see more and more beneficiaries asking for their diverse needs, and as we see statutory direction from the legislature. So we've come up and launched a first of its kind forest carbon project on state trust lands using a high conservation value framework to identify 10,000 acres of operable forest that will be leased for 40 years in order to sequester and store carbon. Specifically, those candidate forests have significant ecological and cultural values. They're exceptionally carbon dense, will continue to generate also revenue for the beneficiaries. We're bringing science as the framework of this work that we've done in the identification of those 10,000 acres, as you can see by this. We're not alone in this. This wasn't some novel, innovative idea that we had at the agency. We are actually following the examples set by the private sector and local governments. As you can see, many of them are actual timber landowners right here in Washington State, as well as government King County with their own land conservation project. Specifically, this project we see has an opportunity to generate a new kind of revenue, not for all of our forest lands, but for specific ones where beneficiaries are asking for something different. It will specifically develop a full 40-year lease term where we will have predictable annual payments versus a single lump sum. Beneficiaries may see revenue before particular parcels would have been ready to harvest. There would be payment for the tree growth, not just the harvest. Forest health treatments can continue to generate additional revenue and provide ecological and social benefits. And when that 40-year lease is up, the Board of Natural Resources has the ability to actually sell the wood, the trees on that land to generate value and volume from those forests at the end of the lease. We have clearly set out a carbon project timeline. When we announced this, we set this goal. We're hoping for completion of the lease, which we do lots of leases, as Senator Warnock, Senator Short know very well. We're used to doing leases. And specifically, we have set forward some of the most robust public engagement process ever. We've specifically designed it to solicit input from our beneficiaries, every single one of them, so they can provide what would they like to see with certain key forest lands being identified that meet that higher ecological value. We've reached out to tribes, stakeholders, and the general public. We've done town halls, open houses, and specifically created a public webinar, a tribal webinar, a public survey, in addition to our in-person public open house. Once this engagement process is complete, DNR will select the final parcels based on what we heard from the beneficiaries and what they wanted and if they wanted to use this tool or not. We are going out to our beneficiaries in very significant detail and making sure we're hearing from them what they would like to see with their forest lands. You, the legislature, are also a beneficiary. You can see on this map the Capital Grant Trusts. These are lands that currently, as you know by the Enabling Act of 1889, fund not only the Capitol's construction, but also reconstruction, repair, renovation, furnishings, and equipment. It's important that you're aware of how much money that this Capital Trust generates for you specifically. So when you look at this, you'll see how many thousands of acres you have, over 90,000 acres. You'll see how much has been set aside. Why has it been set aside? And what is still available for true timber sales and volume? If you look at this, you'll see also an understanding of what the age classification, where we currently have a volume of age class 80 to 99, which is worth 39.4 million, and a volume of 100 and older worth 14.1 million. Here's more information. Specifically, in the next 2 years, you have around 3,900 acres that will be coming up for sale and will be harvestable and ready to be harvested if the legislature so chooses. Interestingly enough, we are already being attacked by some of those timber harvests on your lands. We specifically have one right in the backyard here, the Delica hardwood sale. It specifically was designed as a hardwood sale. Senator Vanaway, I want to thank you actually for your leadership on the hardwood sales and how we've been positioning them and working with the Hardwood Commission to get more of that. It's a 35-acre total in 2 units. It has got significant root rot prevalent throughout it, 2 years of field work and extensive community engagement, more community engagement than I've ever seen on most of our timber sales. The land is zoned commercial forest land and has some strong partners, Green Diamond and other forest landowners surrounding it. And you can see we manage it with the greenest of approaches, from the Sustainable Forestry Initiative program all the way to FSC 100% raw materials. Unfortunately, we've been challenged. We were challenged by Thurston County. Thurston County is now suing us in court on a very tiny timber sale to generate revenue for you, the legislature, that will actually fund the house that you guys are responsible for maintaining. And despite the modifications to this sale and all the outreach we did, and including a special hydrology report, geological, and review by 4 licensed geologists, Thurston County is concerned about this sale. What I would like for the legislature to engage with us on is we are doing our best to manage an enormous amount of forest land that is threatened throughout this entire state by forest health and wildfire, by significant changes. And we are also seeing that beneficiaries in certain communities are very concerned about the long-term health and what those forests look like. This is a partnership. Together, I'd like to partner with you to truly create a new set of tools, additional tools. All we have currently to meet these growing needs of these communities and the beneficiaries is trust land transfer, encumbered lands, and reconveyance. Great tools, but not enough tools. We truly need more tools, and the trust land performance assessment actually set forward the work we could do together to create an endowment fund to get greater reliability and certainty to our beneficiaries, a dedicated acquisition account so we could buy more working forest land that is truly able to generate in quick return the kinds of money that our beneficiaries need more than ever. We also see a huge threat to our working forest lands. We're concerned here about 10,000 acres. In the last 20 years, 400,000 acres have been lost of working forest land. And in the next 20 years, we're expecting another 600,000 acres. When we think about the impacts that that is going to have to the environment, it is far greater than a 10,000 acre carbon project. It is also going to have a much greater impact on our mills and the basic infrastructure that our working forest lands depend on if we're truly going to be and keep being the evergreen state. I want to work with each and every one of you to find the kind of solutions we need. One, to help our agency do better, to actually manage these lands with the growing threats they have at the community scale and at the environmental climate scale. And I want to find solutions to work with you on how we keep this state continue to be the best state for working forest land and for our environment. I thank you for this opportunity.